Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. The All-Star break is here. We still have some NBA topics to break down, including another player finding a new home off the buyout market. We're also going to talk a little bit about how exactly the buyout market works, why some teams might not like it, why other ones do. Some teams have asked for reform. We're going to get into all of that. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, on Instagram at Trevor Lane NBA, joined by Keith Smith. Find him on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, here we are. We're into it. The All-Star break. It's here. Players are off. They're going to places, going on vacations. Some are going to Cleveland, but the NBA news cycle keeps churning.
It does. I'm a little upset you didn't come, and I wore my purple and yellow Orlando City soccer hat, but it's purple and yellow. I wore it for you today off your big win
Yeah, I appreciate
last
that.
night. So I wore it because I took a nap and I have a bed head, so I threw a hat on and it was on top. So but yeah, it's it's funny that you said people are
Good ringer.
going on
That's a
vacation.
good ringer
Yeah,
there.
that
I
was
like
my
that.
phone
I
ring.
like that. You got
That is the
the
Office
Office
theme
intro
song. Is
there.
my
I like
ringtone.
it.
Yes. That was not the Simmons siren. That has now been retired. It's yeah, some are going on vacation to nice warm
Mm-hmm.
places, and some are headed to Cleveland, for other reasons, such as the All-Star
Mm-hmm.
game. And it's funny, I don't know how many people around the NBA have told me the NBA All-Star game should only ever be in a warm place. Like nobody wants it in, Cleveland, New York,
Right.
Toronto, where might be snow on the ground. But at any rate, that's where we're headed to. We've got one more night of games to go, as we're recording this on Thursday. But yeah, we've got news coming. We're waiting to see it. I assume Goran Dragic cleared waivers
Mm-hmm.
about a half hour ago as we're recording this. Extremely unlikely he was going to be claimed, but we may find out as soon as tonight, maybe where his next home is going to be.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where he lands. We've talked about Miami. We've talked about maybe Milwaukee being an option for him, but I think a lot of teams are going to be interested. He's going to be at the top of a lot of
Hmm.
people's boards on the buyout market, so we'll see where he winds up. Yeah, I'm already in all-star break mode. I know there's some more games tonight, but still, oh,
Yep.
we're there.
Same.
A lot of players have already taken off around the NBA, except
Yeah.
for the guys who have to. The guys who are playing tonight. I'm curious to see what we're going to see in terms of effort, intensity, all that stuff. When for the teams that are playing tonight, they're looking around the rest of the league like there's guys already
Yeah.
in Cancun right now. Like
Oh
that's a
yeah.
thing. I'm curious to see
I
what that's going to look like.
I can't tell you how many locker rooms I've been in this last day before the All-Star break. And the conversations are not about pick and roll coverages and how we're going to break down his own defense. It's about what time's your flight to somewhere very
Hmm.
warm, usually. And that's even being here in Orlando. Guys are talking about getting somewhere warmer than here. So, yeah, I don't think too many guys are overly focused, as witnessed the Boston Celtics letting the Pistons snag 18 offensive rebounds in a streak busting loss last night that was not a good
Keith,
one.
I'm going to take the blame on that. I think that was on me because yesterday in the show I talked about how I was happy for your mentions. And then I saw after
Yeah,
what was it? It was a 10-game win streak? Nine?
nine
Okay, so
games.
nine,
Yeah,
so that
they'd
would have
won
been
nine.
10. A
Yep, that
9-game
would have
win
been 10.
streak, one game, you lose by 1 point, and your mentions went to hell again. I'm unbelievable. Unbelievable, man.
Yeah, it. Yeah, I mean, there are people you know how it is. You get to recognize the names
Hmm.
after a while that are in your mentions. You kind of know what their angle probably is, and what ultimately I think is these guys have not been around much over the last 2 weeks. Really, not been around much in 2022 as the Celtics have played well. But one bad loss, boy, and they were right back in full force. But enough about
Yeah.
that. Let's get into news and notes here and start talking about some stuff that's going around on around the NBA.
Let's go to I thought this was interesting, more so maybe just for who broke the news on this. So per Rick Carlisle, the coach of the Indiana Pacers, Tristan Thompson, his soon to be former player, will be signing with the Chicago Bulls. I think it's kind of interesting that you have a head coach acting as a newsbreaker in this sense, but Tristan Thompson getting bought out and will land in Chicago. Now, we heard at the trade deadline that Chicago was in on trying to find another center. There were a few different names
Hmm.
that kind of floated by that they were rumored to have interest in. And now they're getting a guy off the buyout market in Tristan Thompson who can help them. Not a guy that's going to eat up a ton of minutes, but can at least give you a little bit more force on the boards. Again, I'm not expecting him to play 25 minutes a night or anything like that, but an interesting tandem now with Tristan Thompson and Vucevic in the middle.
Yeah, two things on this. What's funny is Rick Carlisle broke this right after their game last night when Tristan Thompson played 21 minutes and scored 17 points off the Pacers bench. So it was like, hey, thanks for that. Good luck in Chicago. What if he had only scored 10 points and played poorly? Like, where's it like, nope, you have to stay another week. We're not letting you go. Like, yeah, it was very funny the way this went down. And this was probably one for the Pacers where I assume they're thinking, all right, coming out of the All-Star break, we'll have Goga Batadze was out with a sore foot, but we'll have him back. We'll have Jalen Smith. We're hopeful to get Miles Turner back some point after. There's no point in keeping Tristan Thompson buried on our bench. Let's set him free now. Now he can sign with the Bulls when he clears waivers and then rejoin them as they come back for their practices post All-Star, and he'll be able to go. As far as impact with the Bulls goes, I'm not told that he's much of an upgrade over Tony Bradley
Mm-hmm.
at this point. I think he wasn't great with Boston last year. He's really kind of lost a lot of what made him good. But if he can give them 15 minutes a night behind Nikola Vucevic and be somewhat of an upgrade on Tony Bradley, then you're fine. Then it worked out great for you, and off you go. I still think that team could really use another guard or a wing, but they prioritized getting another big in there. And I think, all right, that's not bad, right? To get Tristan Thompson on a prorated veteran minimum for the rest of this year.
Absolutely. Like I said, he can still be a factor on the boards. And we'll see. We'll see. I mean, and it could be even situational come playoff time. Maybe you need another big body at some point. And so you turn to him. And it could be some other matchups you don't. So,
Well, think about it too. If you're the Bulls, right, you're thinking we got to go through Joel Embiid at some
that's
point,
it.
possibly. We want another guy who we can throw out there. At least it's 6 fouls, beat up on Embiid a little bit. Thompson is certainly willing and able to do that. So, yeah, I mean, it's not. I'm not going to criticize
Yeah.
this unless they get really silly with who they waive for Tristan Thompson. I'm just not expecting that this. I'm not now all of a sudden. Well, put the Bulls past
Right.
the Heat and the
Mm-hmm.
Bucks or anybody else in the East. I still think of the Bulls the same way I thought of them before. Is if their main guys get healthy, Zach LaVine, Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball, then off we go with them. But I'm not. This isn't going to hurt them by any means. I don't
No,
think.
no. And we'll talk about this. We're going to break down kind of the buyout market in general in just a minute, but that's also the nature of the beast here. These are very low, I mean, basically no risk moves on the buyout market
Hmm.
from the club's perspective. And usually the reward's not super. You're not talking about getting a guy that's, like a power shift or representing a power shift in the NBA when you're talking about getting somebody on the buyout
Yeah.
market.
And just to close the loop on
Yeah.
that, I just checked. He has been
Oh,
waived
okay.
today, so he'll clear. Today is Thursday, so he'll clear waiver Saturday night. My guess is the Bulls will time this up so he can join them when they all are getting back from All Star break, which will probably be Tuesday, Wednesday
Mhm.
for Chicago. I don't know when they play coming out of the break.
All right. Before we get into our discussion of the buyout market, we do have to mention, unfortunately, and I already spent a lot of time talking about this.
Oh yeah.
Anthony Davis, gruesome injury. That was one of the worst turned ankles I've ever seen. His ankle hit the floor, basically. It was nasty, and so that was a big injury last night against the Utah Jazz. Now the Lakers did battle back and wind up actually winning the game. Credit to
Hmm.
LeBron and Russell Westbrook and Austin Reeves made some big plays. A number of guys chipped in, and the Lakers were able to come away with the win. But obviously now they're going to be without Anthony Davis. And I'll tell you what, Keith, Dave McMenamin of ESPN put out a piece where he said the timeline is at least 2 weeks for Anthony Davis. When I saw that, I went, there's no way. There's no way we're
Yeah.
talking 2 weeks. I hate, and the Lakers in particular have a history of doing this where they let information get out that is underselling how long it's going to take for a player to heal from an injury, which then creates expectation. See, a lot of fans will see that and hear, oh, cool, he's back in 2 weeks, and then get upset when that doesn't happen, when that's not
Hmm.
necessarily exactly what's being said, but just that number getting out there can create that expectation. I don't foresee any way that he would be back in 2 weeks based on how severe that injury looked.
Yeah, I would be absolutely shocked if it was 2 weeks. My guess is it's going to be four to
Mm-hmm.
six. Is more looking like this, and this is not me taking shots at Anthony
No, no, no.
Davis. Just given his history, he tends to be a little bit of a slower healer than some other guys. Like we like LeBron might have had something similar and might be out 2 weeks because it's just, LeBron comes back quickly from stuff in general. AD, it tends to take him, whatever the longer end of the timeline is. And that's not, I'm not, there was a lot of gross
Mm-hmm.
stuff going around on the timeline last night that I just don't be that person that, and I'm not being uptight. And, Trevor knows I have a pretty good sense of humor, and it tends to be a pretty, crazy sense of humor at times. Just this isn't funny. Like, it's I honestly, when I didn't see it live, then I turned and got to see the replay, and I thought, oh, Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
Instantly,
Mm-hmm.
that's where my head went. That's where my head goes on those plays. Now, thankfully, when you could see him, his foot was not still turned the wrong
Right.
way, like Gordon Hayward's was. But yeah, really, really bad. I think in a lot of ways this is fortunate that it's not, at least 6 weeks. I'm with you. This is almost one where just don't say anything. Let it get his MRI done, release your statement as a team after that. But I know that's not how the news cycle works. But yeah, this is tough. I just did a radio appearance and they asked me about the Lakers. And I said, what's getting difficult for the Lakers is even if you get into the playoffs, if you can get through the playoffs, play in and into the playoffs, how much of these guys can have
Mm-hmm.
left? Because you're asking so much of especially LeBron James to carry this heavy load, and he's doing it without having the ability to take that kind of 2 week break that we've seen kind of become a thing for him in February or March. So that's what my worry becomes for the Lakers.
Absolutely. And he did have a quote a couple of days ago after practice where he was asked about his knee, and he essentially said, "We don't have the luxury of resting the knee. The only way it's going to heal is through rest, and we can't do that." So, but of course, he was fantastic against the Utah Jazz. You mentioned the fan response on Anthony Davis. I was pretty upset about that as well. I guess
Mm-hmm.
upset isn't really the word. It was disappointed because
Yeah.
we tend, and you and I look at it this way too. I don't care what team the player's on. I don't care if they're a Celtic. I don't care if they're a Clipper. I don't care if they're a rival of the Lakers. It doesn't matter. I don't want to see anybody getting hurt. I don't want to see a
Nope.
player miss games due
Yep.
to injury. And I think I don't want to dive too far into this, but the Charles Barkley comment where he started nicknaming Anthony Davis street clothes, I really wish there was a way to go back and undo that because it's created like this acceptance of like, oh, hey, it's okay to make fun of his misfortune. And so I saw a lot of that in the wake of that injury. And in the moment, we
Hmm.
were thinking his ankles could be broken, right? Like that
Yeah.
was the instant fear, was that it was even more serious than it looked once they got into the x-ray and all of that. And there were still just all kinds of people cracking jokes. I saw a lot of fans of other teams that were out and out celebrating the injury, and it was just so gross to see. So I mean, like you said, don't
Yeah.
don't be that
Don't
person,
be that
don't do
person.
that kind of
Yep.
stuff. It's not okay. Even if you've got keyboard courage and you're just on social media and all that kind of stuff, not
Yeah.
cool.
No, I don't have like remember when Derrick Rose got hurt in the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs? I never was upset with I think they were playing Philly in that first round, if I remember correctly. I didn't have any problem with the Philly fans who weren't celebrating the injury, but were, hey, this gives us a shot now, right? We have a chance to win this series that maybe we didn't have otherwise. That I don't have a problem with because that's focus on your team. And we're gonna, I also don't have a problem if we're a year from now doing this and there's talk about Anthony Davis, and we have to talk about Anthony Davis has been injury
Sure.
prone throughout his career, but that's just reasonable, fair analysis. It's the jokes and picking on a guy and kicking him when he's
Mm-hmm.
down. Just no, like just don't. It's just not. It's just you say disappointed. For me, it's disgusted. I hate stuff like that. If somebody wanted to have the rational discussion of, man, if you're the Lakers, what do you do longer term here? Can you trust him to
Hmm.
stay healthy and all those kind of things? And this one was a fluke one. This isn't one of those where he's just running down the court and all of a sudden he pulls up and he's like holding a
Right.
hamstring or something. This is, this could happen to anybody. But yeah, 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 let's move on to other topics, but just be
Yeah.
better. Just don't, celebrate injuries, as you said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's not put that kind of karma out there.
No. Yeah, because you don't want anybody
No,
doing it if it's your
no,
team.
absolutely not.
That's for sure.
Absolutely not. Okay, let's talk about the buyout market. So let's get
Yeah,
into kind of the way this works because it's almost become, as the years have gone on, it's become a more and more controversial thing in terms of
sure.
just how it operates. Some people look at it as something that actually stagnates the trade deadline to a degree. So let's start from the beginning, though. Why is the buyout market a thing? Why does this exist? Let's start there, and then we'll build from that point.
Yeah, the buyout market it's been around for a very
Hmm.
long time. It's just become, as you said, a much bigger thing over the years than it used to be. But what the buyout market has really grown into is it's your kind of last shot at upgrading your roster before the postseason. So you kind of have the off season, right? That's your big one. That's when you build the bulk of your team. Then you have the trade season. That's when you can, just like it says, make trades and upgrade your team there. Then you go from there into its buyout season. And what happens in buyout season? It really runs in this case. It's open now. People ask, when does it open? There's really not a true start. It more or less starts though when the trade deadline passes. Then, but there is an end. March 1st at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's it. Guys got to be waived by then. Otherwise, they're not going to be eligible for the playoffs. So if it's somebody who hasn't been in the league all year, no issue, right? That guy can sign all the way up to the last day. I always think of Dante Jones, right? 2 years in a row, caught on with the Cavs last day of the season and then made finals runs with them. But if it's somebody who's on a roster right now, Tristan Thompson, Goran Dragic, good examples, they had to be waived by March
Hmm.
1st. So there'll be a handful of other guys that will pop up for. If they're waived after March 1st, they're not eligible for the playoffs. They can still catch on with the team and be with them. They just can't play in the postseason. And a lot of teams, you're not going to sign somebody generally that you feel really good about having and then be like, all right, now let's pull them out of the rotation and they're not going to be there.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where it is. Why does it exist? Well, what generally happens is it's players, for the most case, that are in the final year of a contract that have a little bit more money than their incumbent team would really like to pay them. So it's, hey, give up a little bit of money. We'll set you free. You can go join a team you want to go to. We lower our cost for your
Hmm.
contract, and off we go. That's what we saw with Goran Dragic. We'll ultimately find out with Tristan Thompson, what those numbers look like if he gave up some money. When it's a guy on a minimum deal, they don't. You just
Yeah.
waive them and move on. But when they're on a bigger deal than that, every once in a while we get somebody with a couple years left. Blake Griffin last season was a good example of
Hmm.
that. Maybe John Wall. We can talk about that in a minute here, but that's kind of where the buyout season goes from there. So we've got, call it 2 weeks from today, really, for this to, well, less than that because forget February is a short month, but week and a half or so, and then we'll start seeing teams really settle into, all right, this is what we got. This is what our roster is going to be for the rest of the year because we'll get through the buyout period.
And what happens with the buyout market and why I think some people get, up in arms about it is really it's the inverse of the way the NBA is structured in terms of the flow of talent. In general, what the NBA tries to do is they try to make sure that the bottom teams get players coming to them and get support through draft picks, through, in theory, the best teams are probably the teams that are spending the most on players, which means the worst teams probably have money to spend and then they can go and get those players in free agency and offer more money. And obviously, there's a lot of intricacy in that. A lot of our show is based around that. But essentially, the idea
Mm-hmm.
is that the lower tier teams tend to have some advantages to allow them to go get players, and then the top tier teams are not able to grab those. That's part of the why so many people were upset when Kevin Durant went to the Golden State Warriors. Like, typically, that's not really supposed to happen, where a top team like that can go get one of the best players in the NBA. But because of the circumstances that were taking place that specific offseason, that allowed that. to happen. Normally, you don't see that. However, you're getting the inverse in the buyout market, where the best players who get bought out tend to land with the best teams in the NBA. And that's because of the way this system is. Almost every buyout player is going to get a veteran minimum deal. So when suddenly
Hmm.
the spending across the league is the same, that's all flat from one team to another. It doesn't matter which team you go to, you're getting the same amount of money. That's where suddenly other things than money start to become a bigger priority. And with buyout players, it's typically opportunity and the chance to win. So if you've got a chance and you just got bought out and you're playing for your next contract, you're going to be a free agent in a few months, you're going to go to a team that is giving you a chance to play meaningful minutes, and that usually means into the playoffs. So ergo, the top teams, and a chance to win. You want a chance, especially if you're, Goran Dragic, if you're 35 years old, you want a chance to win a championship. So the buyout market usually winds up funneling the best players to the best teams. And that's where we get a little bit of controversy where some other teams cry foul on this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it, right? Because nobody wants to see the rich get
Mm-hmm.
richer, right? Everybody gets upset about this. But the reality is I don't look at it that way because why do I care if some team that's in the lottery gets a player? I don't care about
Mm-hmm.
that. You get these guys on the best teams. It gets a little tiresome when it's every year it's the same three or four teams that can outspend everybody, are leaving a roster spot open or they just waive a
Mm-hmm.
player and take somebody in. But I mean, I don't know. A lot of these things is I make my peace with it and move on because it's just not worth uh, using my limited brain capacity on being upset about. So I look at it as, yeah, these guys go to the better teams. A couple things with this too that get
Mm-hmm.
missed here is these guys reach a buyout agreement, but they do go through waivers. So Goran Dragic, for example, was waived on Wednesday, but he's been going through the waiver process. So, or I'm sorry, he was waived on Tuesday. I'm all off this week. I mean, most of the day today, I've thought it was
I've been doing
Friday.
the same thing.
So yeah, so I like some of the players around the league. I am also ready for the All Star break, um, but it is it's so you have to still go through waivers. Now, in the case of Dragic, his contract is 19.4 million. There's exactly one team in the league that could claim him. That's the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they're clearly not going to do
Mm-hmm.
that. So, what happens in that case is it becomes all right, can a team even claim the guy? Tristan Thompson, like the Boston Celtics, they're not going to, but they have a trade exception big enough to claim Tristan Thompson. Because how you can claim a guy is either you have enough cap space, that's the Thunder scenario, is they're still 20 million under the salary floor, or you can have a trade exception big enough to fit the player's contract into. And the Celtics have a $17 million trade exception from the Evan Fournier sign and trade this past summer. So they could claim Tristan Thompson. The other thing is you also have to have an open roster spot or you have to be able to create one to be able to do
Mm-hmm.
that. So there are options for these guys to land other places. They just rarely do because, as Rick Carlisle so helpfully told us, it is lined up generally. They're going to be bought out and they're going to go
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. Dragic, that's probably a slightly different situation because the Spurs made that trade knowing he was never going to play. I am almost certain he never even reported to San
Yeah.
Antonio.
No
He's
reason
probably
to.
stayed right where he was, and the Spurs said, "Hey, thanks, good luck." Waivers go in, and off we go. In this case, so just a little bit of the piece there. As you mentioned, though, the vast majority of these guys will sign for the veteran
Mm-hmm.
minimum prorated for the rest of the year. So that means the market becomes then even and flat because I can't get more money. Every once in a while, somebody has a little bit of an exception kicking around, or maybe
Right.
they have a disabled player exception and they can plus up their offer. That occasionally happens. But what the players look for is, can you win? And is there a role for me to play? Because they don't want to go somewhere if they're just going to sit. Yeah, every once in a while you'll get somebody who's much,
Mm-hmm.
much older and then will come in, at the very tail end. But usually it's more of I want to play. Like Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge last year, they still wanted to play. And the Nets had room in their front court and needed front court guys. So they both signed on with the Nets throughout buyout seasons. That's where we're at.
I see from time to time this get roped into the big market versus small market situation. And that's something that I think it's a completely different discussion.
Yeah,
Players in this
completely different.
case, they're not worried about market size or whatever. They're worried about the things that we discussed: opportunity and the chance to win, and that's it. So it's not a big team,
Hmm.
small team, big market, small market. That's not here. That's not what this is.
Correct.
It is the top teams getting guys that some teams or some fans around the NBA will take issue with. I think the bigger thing for me though is the impact on the trade market. And you've got some teams
Yeah.
that say, "Yeah, no, we don't want to give up assets in a trade. We're not going to trade for this player. We're just going to wait until this player or someone like them gets bought out, and then we're going
Yep.
to just pick them up for free without having to give up assets," which of course they do. I don't know if this is something that needs to be litigated out of the league or something that really needs to be fixed, but I've seen some
Sure.
people that haven't been thrilled that it kind of stifles trades because the assumption is that player X is just going to wind up on the buyout market, so we'll just wait you out.
Yeah, I generally, where I don't get overly worked up about this one is it's pretty rare. It's about once every 5 or 6 years that one of these guys really swings
Mm-hmm.
something for a team. Last year, Blake Griffin did kind of really improve the Nets, right? He really played well and really kind of helped them. So that is, that is interesting with the way that comes together. But I am not in a position where I look at it and say, "Oh man, this is the scourge of the league.
Mm-hmm.
We got to stop this." I do think there are bigger issues as far as as much as the NBA salary cap tries to be an equalizer, we have the Warriors and the Nets are so far past it, and the Clippers that they can't even see it at this point. The luxury tax line, that's a bigger problem to me than anything on the buyout market because those teams can just, they've proven over the last couple of years they'll just outspend
Yeah.
everybody. So that's where I have far more of an issue with that and think, maybe we need to do something around that. Maybe there should be stiffer penalties as far as, hey, you pass this, maybe you lose a draft pick or something
Mm-hmm.
like that beyond just there. Maybe that draft pick gets still made and put back into the pool for one of the worst teams in the league or something. I don't know. Or maybe the team that doesn't spend, but then you run into teams just wouldn't spend just to not spend. So I'm very much working through this on the fly right here. So I don't have the answers. But the buyout market, I don't have an issue with it,
Mm-hmm.
because it is what it is. And in the end of the day, I want to see these guys, land on better teams, even if they have a chance to be okay. Right. Like I think, we've got a chance for that to be, good and see them plus up things a little bit.
Absolutely. And these players are largely not going to shift the power that much, as you mentioned in the
No.
NBA. And the challenge is if you're going to try to fix it, every single time we've seen the NBA try to fix something, there has been something unforeseen that happens as a result. There's been some sort of consequence that maybe they weren't anticipating. For example, owners said, "Okay, we don't want these long contracts anymore. We don't want to be paying the Luke Waltons of the world for 6 years or 7 years, these super long deals. Okay, cool. We're going to go shorter contracts. Oh, wait, now we've got all this player movement. Man, we don't want to be in this situation where players
Yeah.
are leaving our franchises so quickly." Well, there's going to be consequences to just about everything that you do, and
Mhm.
sometimes it can be unforeseen. So that would be my
Yeah.
hesitation to trying to fix this or fix it. I don't know if it really needs fixing, and you can
Sure.
accidentally create other problems by tinkering with things too much.
And maybe one of the things you could do is, hey, if you're above the tax apron, which is roughly 6 million above just the tax line, you're not eligible to sign,
Mm-hmm.
a free agent for the rest of the year. Maybe that's an answer. But that runs tricky too. What if you have a guy, really get injured, but he's a guy that's like on the end of a contract, and you're like, all right, this guy's kind of done.
Mm-hmm.
I want to move this guy, man. Maybe you move. You that penalizes that team to be able to replace that
Right.
player. I like I said, I don't have all the answers, but maybe yeah, you could get something there. But yeah, I think I I think it's there's solves to this. We'll see where it goes. So far it's been Dragic and Thompson have been the guys who've
Mm-hmm.
landed so far as landing in the buyout market. We still haven't heard the Dragic landing spot yet. I assume that'll be coming at some point. But yeah, let's see where this one goes.
All right. I think that's about all we needed to say on the biomarker, just in terms of how it works and everything. But I am
Yep.
curious for everybody watching or listening. Let us know in the comments section if on YouTube. What's your take on the biomarket? How do you feel about it? Do you think it needs to be adjusted by the NBA and in the next CBA. Let us know your thoughts on the buyout
And if you
market.
hate it, tell us what you think they should do.
Exactly.
Like that I'm curious about
Yeah,
too.
what is the solution if there are parts of it that you don't like? So let us know in the comments section. If you're listening over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever, send us a review. It's hopefully a 5-star review, and let us know what you would do about the buyout market. Keith, I think that's about all that I've got for today. We'll see. This Dragic thing, we've been waiting. It's gonna break any time now, probably as soon as we stop here. But if that happens, then we'll get to
Yep.
it tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll guys, we may not be doing the Monday through Friday over the next little bit. We may angle for a little bit of time off, but if there's major news, you guys know we'll come to you with it, and we'll figure that out. But we went long on a bunch of stuff going into the trade deadline and going into the All-Star break. We may take a little All-Star break of ourselves. I'm not going anywhere warmer than where I already am, which is pretty nice, I will say. I don't want to make 3/4 of the country angry at me, but it's pretty nice here in Central Florida. So I'm probably gonna stay right put.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere as well, but you know what? It will be nice to get a little bit of a break here, and then we can hit the final stretch of the season with some recharged
Yeah.
batteries.
Yep. Get into the good part.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, everybody, give us your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget, subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office Show on YouTube. Turn on those notifications as well. Till next time, stay safe and see ya.